at home as well. Don't forget to tweet us out with the hashtag #PlayPokemon and let us know who you are cheering for in this amazing game. But here we are. We've got the teams in front of us, Sebi.
Oh, this is really interesting.
Wow.
Look at this. We got Xerneas, Kommo-o, Smeargle, Tornadus, Groudon, and Kangaskhan on Christian's side.
And on Matthias' side, you've got the Crobat, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Incineroar, Tapu Koko, and Amoonguss. Now, there are some very tasty-looking Pokemon here. We've got the Mega Kangaskhan that we've talked about. Great to have that sort of double damage, breaking any potential focus sashes. But the Kommo-o is a great choice on there. Such an exclusive Z-move user. We saw it a lot back in previous seasons, but haven't seen it so far as much in Ultra.
Not yet, because of this many Xerneas is having to see him play. But I think it actually got a really good matchup in this one, because we got the classic Xerneas Groudon versus Rayquaza Kyogre matchup, and the Kommo might do some work if it gets off its Z-move and boosts all of its stats.
Exactly, all the stats go up, and the Z-move hits both targets as well, and the only fairy type on Matthias' team is that Tapu Koko. Yeah. So if that switches in, fair enough, it's not going to take any damage, but you're still going to get the stat boots up on the Kommo-o. So potentially if the Crobat on Matthias' side is carrying something like Haze, just to negate all of those stats, that could be really critical going into the next couple of turns. But it's going to be absolutely amazing to see both of these players fight it out here. And I think it's going to come down to who's going to win the weather war here. Is Matthias going to be able to get his Rayquaza in to keep the rain up so that his Kyogre can hit against the opposing Groudon? Or is Christian going to be able to keep the sun shining?
This is the question. I do think Xerneas is... This matchup is like really interesting, because usually the Xerneas Groudon player wants to either set up the Xerneas and get away with it, or just deal damage each turn just to chip every Pokemon enough, where the Rayquaza Kyogre player tries to avoid that. And there we go. We see the leads.
We're jumping straight into this game here. You can see on the left-hand side for Christian, you have got that Tornadus from Kangaskhan, whereas Matthias has gone for the Kyogre and Tapu Koko. So electric terrain is in the air. Going to be able to fire off some strong electric type attacks, but does have to worry about a fake out coming out from Kangaskhan. That could potentially be going into Tapu Koko, stopping any potential Z move, or going into Kyogre, stopping any of that big weather, unless you want to switch in something like your Groudon to negate the weather and make it all sunny. But Tornadus there, pretty free to set up a Tailwind, wouldn't you say? Pretty free,
Kinda. This is where Christian might start setting up the speed control for his late game later on, like getting in the Xerneas, getting in the Kommo, or even both, for example. This is always a tough situation where you don't want to switch in your Groudon when there's a potential Rayquaza switching in the back, so both players let their Pokemon on the field.
Exactly, it's going to be the Mega Evolution here for Kangaskhan, going to get his little baby out to join in all this Pokemon action here at day 2, and it does go for the fake out. Whose target is it going into? It's going to go into that Kyogre. Obviously no switch-ins, wants to stop any of these water type moves coming out, as Tornadus very freely, thanks to its Prankster ability, able to go for the Tailwind, so boosting up the speed on Christian's side of the field. Tapu Koko wanting to get on out of there, goes for the Volt Switch in electric terrain, does a good chunk of damage to that Kangaskhan, but goes back to Matthias, able to safely switch in another Pokemon.
There you go. This was an interesting turn 1. We have seen really safe play setting up the Tailwind. Matthias sending in that Incineroar just to make sure we can slow the game down. Intimidating the Kangaskhan. Tornadus is usually special attacking based, so it might go faking out in this route. I guess Matthias is still figuring out whether there is the Groudon in the back, or if he's straight up taking the Xerneas. I bet he still needs an answer in the back. If you look on Matthias' side, Incineroar, Tapu Koko, and Kyogre, there is no real answer yet to a boosted Xerneas, and this is where things get interesting. Like, got Christian the Xerneas in the back. What does Matthias have in the back? I'm pretty sure he wanted to bring the Rayquaza. I'm sure there's a way to get around that Groudon, but this is going to be interesting.
It certainly is. Kyogre going straight for a Protect here. Just wants to save itself thanks to the speedy Pokemon on Christian's side. But there's going to be a Z move. Looks like a Supersonic Sky Strike coming out from the Tornadus, which is a sort of questionable amount of different items it can have. We've seen it so often with the Z move, but it also sometimes carries that Focus Sash. So this is good information for Matthias, knowing that he doesn't have to potentially break that to pick up the KO. But Tornadus jumping right up into the sky now.
There you go. He's chipping that.
He's angry.
He's angry. This is interesting information that Tornadus cannot be taunted somehow by stuff because of it might go for a Flying C Tailwind, and we see some chip damage on that Incineroar, to be honest. There wasn't that much, and Incineroar going straight for a slow U-turn, almost taking Kangaskhan out and coming back to Matthias.
Yes, Matthias wants to keep that Intimidate for later on, just to keep going down against that opposing Kangaskhan. But I think most critically, he wants to preserve that Fake Out. You've mentioned a lot about how Matthias needs to have an answer for Xerneas if that's in the back for Christian. And having that Fake Out will potentially stop a Geomancy from coming up later on in the game. Brings back in his Tapu Koko. Obviously, this is a Pokemon that can apply a lot of offensive pressure to the Tornadoes. And anything it does now really will kind of pick up the KO against Kangaskhan. So Matthias might be safe to switch out his Kyogre, keep the weather maybe for later on, bring in his Incineroar again just to get another Intimidate off and get Fake Out back on his field again later on in the turn.
He's playing around that Tailwind turns really cleverly. Look, he's not only preparing the board, but also almost taking the Kangaskhan out. He just leaves the Tornadus right where it is. He preserves the Tapu Koko to take that Tornadus out later on, and now goes for that and switches out the Kyogre in favor of Incineroar again, like you said, Lou.
Yeah, Incineroar jumping back into the action. Always happy to see the Fire Cat back on the field. Getting the Intimidate off once again. Of course, Tornado's not going to worry too much about that, but Kangaskhan's the critical Pokemon. It just helps Tapu Koko out a little bit more. Even with the rain gone, Tornado's able to fire down a Hurricane against Tapu Koko and also gets the confusion. It's going to be the electric terrain at the moment. That's not helping out with any of those secondary effects, as Double Edge also goes into Tapu Koko thanks to that second Intimidate, which is really critical. Tapu Koko is able to survive, but is it able to get through the confusion?
No, taking itself out. Oh, that's unfortunate for Matthias. Not only did the move here, but also got the confusion.
That was a rough turn for Tapu Koko. Not only did it get hit by both of Christian's opponents, but it hit itself as well.
Yeah. That Tornadus from Christian was a really clever pick, and now we see the last Pokemon from Matthias. It actually is the Rayquaza. So how does he get away with dealing damage? We still got the leading two Pokemon from Christian's side, although Kangaskhan is really intimidated, and Tornadus already used its C-move. They still got offensive pressure to pressure Matthias. The Tornadus we've already seen does good amount of damage with that strong Hurricane. This is still interesting. Christian is not showing his two other Pokemon yet.
No, exactly. I think a lot of it's going to come down to what item this Rayquaza is holding. It needs to be something that gives it a lot more sort of physical bulk to be able to take down that Xerneas, and ideally Matthias needs to be able to sort of capitalize on the Xerneas before it gets its Geomancy up. But as you can see here, no Mega Evolution from the Rayquaza. Kangaskhan going to KO itself thanks to the recoil damage it's taken going into that opposing Incineroar. As Rayquaza goes for Sword Stance, I said it needs something physical. That's a great option.
That's ideal, and Matthias already took the Fake Out user. At least one Fake Out user. There might be a potential Fake Out on Smeargle, but he already took one Fake Out user out, and now this Rayquaza, especially after a Sword Dance, is really scary for Christian. Christian sends in his Xerneas now. Maybe he's trying to set up a straight away, trying to get attacks on Rayquaza, and Matthias might make use of that, like switching in Kyogre, because that Rayquaza is going to be the double target of this turn, and setting up his weather. And this is really tough because Christian wants to target the Rayquaza and Matthias wants to target the Xerneas. One is already boosted and one doesn't want to be boosted.
No, that's very true. And that Rayquaza as well getting a +2 attack. We've spoken so much about Intimidate previously, but looking at Christian's side, he's got no Intimidate user on there. So that Sword Stance boost is sort of going to stick around for a while unless Matthias wants to maybe switch out Rayquaza. But why would you when you've got Kyogre on the field as well? Particularly keeping Rayquaza unevolved, you've got that airlock on there. So the weather's always going to stay sort of active here. Rayquaza does go for the extreme speed going into that Tornadus. Does a huge amount of damage, but not enough to pick up the KO as Tornadus goes for another Tailwind. So Christian constantly in this game keeping the speed advantage on his side. Xerneas not going for a Geomancy either, just goes straight up for a Dazzling Gleam. Huge damage into Rayquaza.
Oh, this was really good. This is what we've talked about before the match even started, like getting off damage with Xerneas as soon as possible. Xerneas is such a strong Pokemon, even unboosted. And those Pokemon like Rayquaza has to go for extreme speed or protect if it wants to at least do something in the turn, because Tornadus already got Christian a really good position here, and there you go, Rayquaza goes for the protect, still not megaed yet.
Exactly, Tornadus with the rain. Oh, of course, if you've got Rayquaza, it negates all of Weather's attacks there, so the Hurricane avoiding against that opposing Kyogre, Xerneas doing what it does best and going for another Dazzling Gleam, picks up the KO against the Kyogre, leaving Matthias down to his last 2 remaining Pokemon. So he will get the Incineroar back in to go for a Fake Out, but Christian's still got a few Tailwind turns.
He's still got a few Tailwind turns and still 1 Pokemon in the back he hasn't even brought yet. Might let it be Groudon, let it be Como, both really hard to get away with. If he sends them on the field, but Christian got this already locked up. He just needs to chip their Rayquaza and Incineroar, and this is what happens. Like, Matthias got some answers to Xerneas on his team with Crobat and Mungus, but he didn't bring those. So it was, I don't want to say a field day for Christian Xerneas, but here you go.
Yeah, no, Christian's played this so well. Rayquaza able to just get the KO against that Tornadus that has given him so much trouble, as Xerneas, of course, gets flinched by the Fake Out. But I think you're right there. You know, he's got so many different answers to the Xerneas, but he hasn't really, even if he brought them, he hasn't really needed them. Kangaskhan and Tornadus have sort of done all the work. Xerneas is only really here to clean up, and the final Pokemon is that Komodo. So Christian kind of, even though he's got this game 1 kind of wrapped up, he's in this potential position to just start setting up everywhere, and it just shows how strong his team is. If this was maybe earlier on in the game and Matthias has still got 2 Pokemon in the back, this could be a great opportunity for him to get those boosters up and try and sort of go through the rest of the game. But the match has been forfeited. Unfortunately, Matthias is not going to be able to come back from that game 1, and Christian is going to take the first game here.
Really intense, but wait for it. You know it. You played Matthias. You played him.
I won every game 1.
Yeah.
And then he comes back with a vengeance. He's one of these players who just absorbs information from game 1. So Christian revealed a lot of the tricks up his sleeve, where the Z move was, obviously the Mega Pokemon. And Matthias is going to be able to use that information. And one thing that he's very well known for is reading the player. So he could analyze exactly how Christian has played that and just adapt that going forward. Maybe make some reads and just start calling Christian on what action he's going to be going for.
He has to adapt, to be honest. Like, he got a really tough matchup. That Como is a really interesting pick, especially next to Xerneas, because the answers Matthias got for Xerneas are like a Crobat and a Mungus, and depending on the ability of that Como and the attacking move on Crobat, there are loads of Crobats who drop Brave Bird in favor of Super Fang and stuff like that, so might not be even able to touch that Komon. You can't taunt that boosting C move, right?
No, of course not.
And this is really interesting. Christian left the Groudon at home, knowing it might not have the best matchup against Kyogre and Rayquaza, and there's Incineroar and Crobat as well, which dodges all the ground type attacking moves. I think Christian did a right call by setting up early the speed control with Tailwind and having 2 boosting Pokemon in the back, and Xerneas just did enough damage.
Exactly. Xerneas could just come in late game and sort of sweep through, but if you're Matthias now, you really have to think about how you're going to stop that Tornadus. You've just mentioned how he got the speed up. He actually got it up twice in that game as well. Matthias leaving it on the field to be able to get that second Tailwind, I think, was really destructive for him, particularly in that end game. So potentially using the Incineroar, getting the Fake Out off on there. Like you said, you can't taunt Incineroar, can't taunt the Tornadus anyway because he can't stop the Z move. So he needs to come up with a way to be able to get it cleanly KO'd and off the field. Maybe sacrifice 1 Tailwind and then stall out those turns so that later on in the game you can bring in your Pokemon and start dealing some offensive pressure of your own.
He did that really well, to be honest, stalling out those Tailwinds, but I guess he expected that the
extreme speed to maybe KO.
The extreme speed to KO, but now he knows that this might not be the case.
He needs a double sword stance on that Rayquaza. Trying to boost it up, but here we are, we're jumping into game 2. It's going to be Kangaskhan and Tornadus again on Christian's side, and Matthias as well going for the same lead there of Tapu Koko and Kyogre.
This is really interesting. Maybe Matthias wants to take out the Tornadus now as soon as possible. Also the Kangaskhan giving Christian like pressure with Fake Out almost every time it's on the field, and you cannot not touch a Kangaskhan because it will gonna touch you with the strong double edges and chip away so much damage. And this is what I like about like Xerneas and Kangaskhan. You have to target both, to be honest, because if you don't, Kangaskhan's gonna chip you enough to be in Dazzling Gleam range and a Moonblast range, and if you make use of that cleverly, like Christian did in the first turn, you don't need the setup.
Yeah, you certainly don't. But it's a tricky situation again for Matthias here because the Fake Out can just go into Kyogre, stopping it from dealing out any offensive pressure. But you do still have the Tapu Koko there as well. That's a Pokemon that could utilize its electric type attacks really strongly here against that Tornadus. You might have to sacrifice the first Tailwind, but you know that Matthias is able to stall out turns. He demonstrated it very well in Game 1. So it might potentially be what he needs to kind of sacrifice, let him get a Tailwind up, but also pick up the KO in return as Kangaskhan goes for the Fake Out.
There you go, all Pokemon staying on the field and doing a good amount of damage to that Tapu Koko, preserving the Tornadus, which now can go for a Tailwind. And let's have a look if that Kyogre is going actually for Ice Beam into the Tornado slot. I guess it is enough to take the Tornadus out, and now Matthias is straight going after the Tornadus to shut down the speed control on Christian's side.
Exactly, quite a safe play there from Matthias because he was very free to go for a full powered Water Spout in that situation, but going for the Ice Beam just did counter for if the Groudon maybe did switch in and take that weather away, and as you can see it was enough to pick up the KO against the Tornadus, and I think that was the critical thing. Yes, you could have got big damage against the Kangaskhan as well, but if Groudon switched in you would have had no damage and the Tornadus would still be on the field. But Christian now has his Xerneas here. It would be quite key for him to be able to get that Geomancy up at the moment. He's got the Tailwind on his side and there's nothing really Matthias is able to do to stop that from going up at the moment, particularly once Xerneas gets the +2 special defense boost. Both of these special attackers aren't going to be dealing as much damage.
This is a really tough situation for Matthias because if he starts switching in those Incineroars, and he just straight up takes so much damage in process, and this is a really tough situation. Christian's situation is really good again, going for the Geomancy, boosting its status, being faster than Tapu Koko and Kyogre, and that Tailwind allows that Xerneas to be a more bulky one, like probably trained heavily in special defense and defense to set up those Geomancies better under Tailwind. And now we do see the Electrium Sea on Tapu Koko. Yeah,
one of the popular item choices on Tapu Koko, particularly in the electric terrain. It can deal out so much damage. There we see the Gigavolt Havoc. If this is going into that Xerneas, well, it's Geomancy up. It's not going to be dealing as much damage as possible, but Matthias does need a way to be able to take it down. But no, instead going into that Kangaskhan, a better usage of the damage output that Gigavolt Havoc is able to do, as Kangaskhan doesn't have the boost that Xerneas has.
And a Water Spout, single target Water Spout, obviously
does nothing.
No damage. Because Water Spout is one of those moves, it's based on how many HP you got left. And Christian is sending in their Kommo-o, I guess, to seal the deal.
Oh, poor Kyogre there. If it maybe had something like Origin Pulse instead, that would have been the better choice at that particular moment. You see Xerneas sort of just taking a tiny amount of damage, but Kommo-o on the field now as well. That's definitely something Matthias has to think about. Able to go for that Z move and get both of the targets down. Tornadus hasn't used its Z move here, so it's still all to play for Christian. Goes for the Dazzling Gleam, of course. Not only does it have +2 speed on here, but it also has a Tailwind behind it and will easily pick up the KO against that Kyogre. As well with Tapu Koko protecting. What are we going to be doing?
Well, a substitute. Oh, I was thinking like, oh, if he goes for the C move now, then it's not going to work and you don't get the boost. But that was really clever by Christian. That's why he is playing an Obsidian. Like thinking, oh, what is happening there? But that substitute, really clever.
That was a really smart way to play as well. When we were sort of looking at the team beforehand, the only immunity that Matthias has is that Tapu Koko, as it's already on the field. There's now an Amoonguss on there that if Christian doesn't KO the Amoonguss, then he's able to easily get that Z move off. Thanks to electric terrain on the field as well, you don't have to worry about any spores potentially coming out into Xerneas. You do have to worry about potential clear smog from this Amoonguss. There's not much point doing redirection at this point. Both Kommo-o and Xerneas have great double targeting attacks. So Amoonguss, I'm not too sure what else it's going to be able to do other than protect.
Not only there is a Xerneas on Christian's field, but there is still a Kommo-o ready to pull off a strong C move. And Amoonguss, when they do run clear smog, it doesn't break the substitute from Kommo-o, which is like really clever. But Christian is still waiting to show the C move. Or did Tornadus use the Flynium C yet?
I don't think it has in this game. It just went for the Tailwind. But it went for it in game 1. We've got the Rayquaza here bringing back in the airlock, but fortunately as Kyogre has already gone down, it has the potential to Mega Evolve itself up now. We can maybe see some Mega Rayquaza action on here, but Amoonguss definitely doesn't want to be facing down against these Pokemon. Komodo as well, just going for the Kangaskhan. It may not even be a Z-move Komodo, it may be holding some other kind of crazy item, but I just want to see that Z-move that I really hope it is. But I don't really know what Matthias can do here to sort of adjust things. He's down to his last 2 Pokemon, Rayquaza and Amoonguss. And Amoonguss is really stuck, like we said. It can't spore in electric terrain, redirection's a bit futile. And Xerneas all boosted up, there's not a lot Rayquaza can do. And I think Christian has masterfully just pinned down Matthias into a position where not only has Christian got the speed advantage, but he's got the type advantage as well. Yeah, and this is where Christian's game plan worked out perfectly. Setting up the Tailwind, let his boosters be faster than every Pokemon on Matthias's field. That Amoonguss was in the back so he could prepare and set up in front. Xerneas going for the Moonblast now, right into the Amoonguss, trying to do a really good amount of damage. And whenever Rayquaza wants to attack, it has to take some damage in return. Well, first we see the Dragon Ascent into the Xerneas. Not quite enough to take it out. And if there is a C move coming from Como, there you go, Luke. There we are. I finally get to see this beautiful animation. I love all the Z moves and things that are really exclusive to a Pokemon. Like, no other Pokemon is able to do this. The beautiful thing about the Z move not only is it an amazing animation, but you also get all your stats boosted at the end. It is also one of, I think it's the only double targeting Z move. There you see Clangorous Soul Blaze. Look how mad he is. He's so ready here. Day 2 in Berlin. Kamoa's like, don't write me off, I can do Ultra Series. He definitely can. Look at this. That Como pick is so clever, making use of like every Pokemon that is good against Xerneas, like Troba. Oh, Focus Sash. There you go. One. Oh, very interesting reveal there for Matthias to have Focus Sash on his Rayquaza. You see Komodo getting boosts across the board as Amoonguss finishes up here with a little Grass Knot going into the Xerneas. Not enough to pick up the KO though. If that Grass Knot would have taken out the Xerneas, there would have been more outs for Matthias to win this. But now both Pokemon are in just range for each attack. Both players are already shaking hands down there. I guess Matthias knows this might have been it and forfeits the match after a friendly handshake. Oh, huge congratulations there to Christian. He played that so well. And I think the thing I love the most, you have 2 very boosting Pokemon, Xerneas and Komodo, and he was able to showcase the 2 of them together so well. The synergy between them, absolutely phenomenal. I think he really had the type matchup there against Matthias. Sort of in team preview, look, oh, Matthias doesn't have a Xerneas. That helps me out quite a lot. Don't have to play a mirror and don't have to worry about my Komodo taking any fairy type damage. But of course Rayquaza there on the other side of the field going, right, there's dragon type moves coming my way, there are fairy type moves coming my way. I'm in a little bit of trouble here. Focus Sash can only help you out once. This was really interesting, Lou. I really love to see that. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm that kind of player. When we are allowed to bring 2 restricted Pokemon, I always tend to bring those, no matter what happens. But we have seen great use from Christian, letting the Groudon at home, knowing, okay, it might have got not the best matchup against Rayquaza and Kyogre. I just straight up set up my speed the first turns and then make use of that by going for my boosting moves, or just chipping damage and setting up the substitute. That was a very nice touch. That was really nice. Like, there are turns where people tend to switch into fairy type Pokemon just to dodge that C move and not let that Como boost, and in those turns that Como can set up substitute. Exactly. Get away with it. And he really was even pinned down into that situation as he did pick up the KO, so it was just Tapu Koko left on the field, and that could have just been a wasted Z move, but he was able to sort of stay calm and preserve it for later on. Wasn't, you know, trigger happy with the buttons going, yeah, we're gonna go for using the Mega Evolution, we're gonna go for the Z move, but no, he stayed calm, kept it 1 turn later, and it was just such a good play from him. As well, like you said, he kept the Groudon at home, and I'm very like you as well. I like bringing my 2 restricted Pokemon. That's probably why he's on the main stage and we are here behind the desk. But it does just show how well versed he is with this team and how adaptable it can be as well. I mean, Komodo, when it gets his boost up, it's kind of like a restricted. It's powerful. It's really powerful. It got the
I guess this is one of the most powerful C moves you can have, like dealing loads amount of damages to both Pokemon and then boost all your stats in return, which is really strong. We've seen the reveal on the Pokemon World Championship.